when someone finally admits they were wrong about you. It's one of the quietest yet most powerful moments you'll experience. It's not loud, but it feels like a door slamming shut inside them, or stillness before a storm. You didn't ask for this moment or try to force it. You didn't argue, send messages, or make speeches to prove who you are. You just kept moving forward. You kept going, even when everything suggested you should stop. Even when it felt like no one was watching. Even when you were exhausted in a way that sleep couldn't fix. The kind of tiredness that comes from defending your reality where others had already made up their minds. And you kept going beyond that, past the point where most people would settle for just surviving. But survival wasn't enough for you. You wanted to arrive, and you did. Now, those who doubted you are faced with the reality of who you are, and the story they built about you is falling apart, quietly, completely, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. Let's be clear about what really happened. It wasn't just doubt, which is passive. They made an active choice about who you were, early on, with confidence, sometimes without much thought, and then stuck to it, ignoring anything that challenged their view. They built a whole structure of assumptions and dismissals, and they lived in it. They shared their certainty with others, repeating their version of you until it sounded like fact. They told people what you could and couldn't do, using your mistakes as proof and your silences as admissions. Every hesitation or struggle you had just reinforced their view. They weren't seeing you. They were seeing the version of you they'd already decided on. With limits they felt comfortable describing, they talked about your supposed ceiling in detail, both when you were present and when you weren't, using a tone that sounded realistic but wasn't. They were certain, not correct. And you've just shown them that certainty isn't the same as being right. There's a unique kind of anger that comes when someone realizes they were deeply wrong about another person. Not just a small mistake, but a fundamental one that reveals the limits of their own perspective. This anger doesn't show itself loudly. Instead, it's a heavy, tense silence. You can see it in their face, the stillness, the tension behind their eyes, the words they almost say but hold back. This isn't indifference. It's much heavier. They're trying to adjust their entire view of you in real time, doing their best to hide the effort. They're struggling to match the version of you they believed in with the reality in front of them. But the two don't fit. Their old assessment has to be let go, and that says something about them, which they understand all too well. That's why they're so still. It's important to realize what it really costs someone to be wrong about a person they dismissed. It's not just about changing an opinion. It means letting go of the story they've told others, and maybe even you. That story has to be quietly withdrawn, without any announcement or public correction. There's no moment where they admit they were wrong and explain why. Instead, the realization stays inside them and quietly undermines their confidence. Every bold statement they made about your limits now feels embarrassing, but they can't get rid of it. They just have to carry it and pretend it's not heavy. And it is heavy, because the more certain they were, the harder it is to admit they were wrong. They leaned on that certainty as a kind of authority, So now the silence you hear from them is the sound of someone struggling with a weight they don't know how to describe. Don't shrink yourself to make others more comfortable. You've already spent too much time making yourself smaller for people who decided you weren't enough. You held back your confidence and ambition because you learned that showing your full potential made others uncomfortable. You tried to fit into their expectations. Even then, you were more than they allowed for. The problem was never you, it was their way of measuring. You've spent too long trying to fit into standards that were never right. That time is over. You're not just a side note in someone else's story. You're proof that their assessment was wrong from the start. Stand in that truth fully and unapologetically, without softening yourself for people who never did the same for you. When someone is doubted for a long time, something changes inside them. The doubt starts out loud and overwhelming, filling every space and making you prove yourself in situations where you shouldn't have to. It's a tiring kind of resistance, not just from hard work, but from constantly pushing back against disbelief. But if you keep going, not pretending it's easy, but refusing to let it define you, the doubt changes. It doesn't go away, but you start to use it as fuel, turning it into direction and purpose. You may not even notice when this shift happens. You're just trying to survive. But over time, survival in a certain direction becomes a life. Now, your life is the evidence they have to face, and it forces them to confront the real meaning of their doubt. Take a moment to really feel what just happened, instead of rushing past it. You've learned to keep moving because being open has sometimes made you vulnerable. But pause and notice this. A judgment about you was overturned. Not just an opinion, but a verdict that others accepted as fact. Verdicts don't change because of wishes or arguments. They change because of undeniable evidence. Your life became that evidence, not your potential or someone's belief in you, but your real present achievements. The people who doubted you saw you surpass the limits they set, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. You didn't need anyone to defend you. Your existence spoke for itself, and there was no argument left against it. Let's talk about the pain you carried to reach this point. It wasn't just one kind of pain. There was the obvious pain, missed opportunities, being overlooked, and walking into rooms where others had already judged you. That pain is real and deserves to be acknowledged. But there was also a deeper, slower pain from being around people who think they know who you are. Even if you know it's their limitation, it still affects you, especially during your most tired or doubtful moments. You face that pain, not always gracefully or confidently, but honestly. Some days you weren't sure how things would turn out, and sometimes fear was the only real feeling you had. Still, you kept moving forward. And now, you're standing exactly where you aimed to be, while those who doubted you have to accept that you made it. There's something people don't tell you about proving others wrong. You only learn it by living through it. It doesn't feel like you imagined when you were struggling. You might picture a triumphant, dramatic moment where everyone finally recognizes you, and that idea helps you get through tough times. But the real moment is quieter and more complex. It's less about winning and more about seeing the truth finally replace a lie. The victory is real, but it's layered and not simple. You didn't defeat anyone, you became undeniable. That doesn't erase the years you were overlooked, but it does make it impossible for others to deny you again. Real wins are always more complicated than you expect. They require you to hold on to the whole journey, not just the celebration. Their anger is a sign. Pay attention to it. If they're truly upset, not just pretending, it shows how much they invested in keeping you limited. They weren't just bystanders. They needed you to stay small to support their own sense of judgment or place in the world. When you proved them wrong, it shook something important for them. That's why their anger feels so heavy and doesn't go away quickly. You didn't just prove them wrong. You changed the foundation of what they believed. People don't forgive that easily. Not because you did anything wrong, but because it forces them to rebuild their view of the world. And that's hard work they never expected to do. They wanted you to fit their story, but you didn't. And now their anger is the result. You were underestimated so often and for so long that it stopped being a single event and became the environment you lived in. You didn't choose it, but you adapted, learning to move through others' disbelief without letting it become your own. That's not a small thing. It's a daily act of self-belief, even when everything around you makes it hard. Most people don't realize what it takes to keep believing in yourself in a place that doubts you. It's not about proving others wrong in a loud way, but quietly holding on to what you know about yourself and building from there. You learn this through experience, not theory. No one was waiting for you to succeed. You made your own place and stayed, even when no one noticed. That persistence is what really unsettles those who doubted you, even if they don't realize it. There's an important difference between people who were wrong about you because they didn't have enough information and those who made up their minds early and refused to change even as new evidence appeared. You know which type you dealt with. You saw them move the goalposts when you showed growth, or shift their doubts to new areas when you proved yourself. When you brought evidence, they questioned it or credited your progress to luck or outside factors. The evidence was always there, but it was inconvenient for them, so they chose to interpret it instead of accepting it. For a long time, you were interpreted instead of truly seen. But now your life is too clear and substantial to be explained away. They have to accept it. And with that comes the realization that their conclusion about you was always wrong and will keep being wrong as long as you stay true to yourself. Not the loud, announced, cinematic version where someone stands up and formally concedes the argument. The quiet one, the permanent one. The one that settles into the texture of ordinary days from this point forward and doesn't leave. They were wrong about you, completely, structurally, specifically and demonstrably wrong, not in the soft sense of being slightly off in their estimate, but in the hard sense of having built an entire case on a false foundation and defended that case against accumulating evidence until the evidence became impossible to continue ignoring. They know it now. Not because you told them, not because you confronted them with a prepared list of every moment they underestimated you, not because you found the right room and the right moment and the right version of the speech you spent years refining in your own head, because your life arrived, because your life showed up in a form that is heavier than any argument, quieter than any confrontation, and more final than any conversation you could have manufactured. What you built landed in their reality with the weight of something true, and truth, when it finally arrives at scale, does not require your assistance to make its point. Their admissions do not always come dressed in words. Sometimes it lives in the new quality of silence, in the different texture of how they say your name, in the absence of the old confidence in how they speak about your limitations, a confidence that was always loudest in the rooms where you weren't present, and that has now gone notably quiet, in the way eyes move differently across a room when the person they underestimated enters it. You will recognize it. You already do. You know exactly what you're looking at. You knew the moment it shifted because you've been paying attention to that shift for longer than you would have chosen to. You have been waiting, not impatiently, not obsessively, but with the durable, grounded, correctly calibrated patience of someone who knew what was true about themselves and was simply waiting for the world to catch up. The world caught up. They caught up. And you are standing on the other side of every moment they were certain you wouldn't reach, fully present, fully intact, carrying the entirety of what it cost you to get here, not as a wound, but as a record of a person who was told the ceiling was lower than it was, and kept building anyway, past the ceiling they installed, past the floor they expected you to stay on, past every confident, incorrect, expensive prediction they made about the limits of what you were, all the way to exactly this, the undeniable, quiet, permanent, complete reckoning of a life that refused to match their story. You are not the revised version they expected. You are the proof that what they expected was never the truth. And that proof is not going anywhere. It is installed now, in the record, in the room, in the specific look on the face of someone who is sitting inside the wreckage of their own certainty. You did not break it. You simply lived. And living, when it is done fully and honestly and past every appointed deadline for your diminishment, is the most devastating thing you can do to a story built on your absence.